All right, welcome back, friends. So I just gave you Jesse's introduction. I know you guys are super excited to hear about this, so we're gonna jump right in. So Jesse, can you tell me about your journey? What inspired you to get into the baking/culinary world?
Great question. I went to a vocational school when I was in junior and senior year in high school, and I was part of a culinary arts program that really, really set me apart and took me to the next level and had a better understanding and foundational understanding of culinary arts and baking and pastry. So I actually started out in savory. I did culinary my first year, and then we started doing baking my senior year, and I was actually really terrible at it. And my chef would always put me on cakes. When I was terrible at cutting cakes, I would cry all the time, but she would still put me on there because she wanted me to get it. And I realized one day that this is cake and flour and eggs. I can't let these three ingredients defeat me. So I proverbially took the bull by the horns and said, I'm not taking no for an answer. I'm gonna be good at this at some point. And I studied and studied and studied and practiced. And I was like, you know what? I can make a career out of this. So I started applying to culinary schools. I got into every school that I applied to and signed up for baking and pastry. And here I am today from that decision. So I'm very, very happy that I stuck with it because times were very hard and tough back then, but I stuck with it and I'm still striving to be the best version of me I can today.
I love that. That is so similar. That is so similar to me. When I went to culinary school, I remember when we moved into cakes where our chef instructor was like, make that cake your beat. And I was like, man, it was stressing me out because they would like change the temperature of the room
Uh,
while we were decorating cakes or like intentionally walk by and poke it. Like it was madness. And I was like, why do you hate me? Like, what do you do? I'm already nervous. Like, why are y'all messing this up? And so, but the whole sticking with it, I became really, really good at cakes. So I get it. I get it. Yeah, that helped. Okay. So aside from sticking with it, what's probably the biggest lesson you've learned in your career?
Biggest lesson would definitely be patience and getting to understand and learn the techniques and foundations. Nowadays, the students and everyone that's involved, everyone wants to, they see everything on TikTok, they see everything on Instagram, they see all these things, the flashy, all these amazing things, right? And they showed me these things and the chef, I'd love to learn how to do this. Yes, but you have to learn how to walk before you can run, right? And they show me these photos and pictures, and I can pinpoint out each and every technique that they utilize in that photo. They use the creaming method for this. They use the lamination method for this. They use the whipped cream. They had to make a foam for this method, right? These are all the things that you have to learn and master before you can learn how to run at that level. So it's everyone wants instant gratification, but understanding that all of the boring, monotonous jobs of lining tart shells, folding parchment paper, piping eclairs, doing those things over and over and over again, make it be a little bored, but it's building you up to go to the next level that you want to be at. But in order to get to there, you have to learn how to walk first.
Agree. Oh my gosh. I feel like I'm back in culinary school now. Yes. Agree. And we didn't have TikTok 12 years ago when
Right,
I went to
right,
the Cordon Bleu. So it was just like, well, this is what I saw on Pinterest. Or
right.
this is what I saw on the internet. And how do I do this? And they were like, when you learn how to make a Swiss meringue buttercream. Yeah, that's why the icing looks like that. But I had to sit there and learn all of those things. And I was like, I'm never going to use this. And I use all of it
Right.
all the time, all the way through. Even when you don't think you are definitely using it. What advice would you give someone who is just starting out in the industry?
Ooh, good one. I definitely, a lot of people approach me on this, and I definitely say, do your best to immerse yourself in everything. Immerse yourself, TV shows, publications, magazines. When I was a student here, I was a bit of a nerd, so I spent the weekends in the library looking at old textbooks and magazines from the 80s, 90s, 70s, right? Seeing how trends have evolved from back then, how equipment technology has evolved from back then to now to what's going on in the future. Find a mentor, someone that's in it, in the middle of it, that can give you some guidance on what to do, what not to do. This is what I want to do. Well, before you do that, maybe you should focus on doing this. It's very, very hard to navigate because there's so many different avenues you can go down. And now, especially with, 2025, there's even more avenues you can go down as well too. You don't have to be, you can go to culinary school and not have any intention of being a chef, baker, pastry chef at all. You can do so many different things: food media, writing, front of the house, consulting. There's so many different avenues you can go down now that if you try to look at all of them, you'll get lost or you get confuddled. So it's best to find someone that can give you some guidance on where to start, where you want to end up. And students always ask me, chef, how do I choose my externship? I have to go on an externship. I don't know what I want to do. I don't know if I like cakes or chocolates. I'm like, well, maybe you should go to a place that does a little bit of everything. So you're exposed to all of it. So you know what you'd want to do, but also as equally as importantly, you may figure out what you don't want to do, which to a lot of people is hard to come by, right? You go down this avenue. I don't want to go down this avenue anymore. I want to turn around and go somewhere else. But sometimes if you don't realize these things, you go so far down that it's too hard to come back and you're stuck. So it's easy to look at all these things, but it's better to find someone that can give you some guidance that's been through it, that can provide some insight for you so that way you can follow the correct path that you're destined to find.
That is such great advice. And I remember asking that question. And I was a late bloomer going to culinary school. And so I already had 2 kids, right? And when I asked my chef instructor that question, he said, do you want to see your children? And I said, yeah. And he said, don't go work at a hotel. Don't work at a restaurant that's open every holiday. You do not want to be on a Disney cruise ship. Like, yeah, all these things sound great to you. But if you want to see your children, do not go to these places. And they were all the top places on my list. And I was like, and he was like, if you want to see your kids, don't do this. And that's how I ended up in a bakery, unpaid, on externship. And I learned more in those 90 days than I learned the whole year that I was in culinary school. I learned how to run a bakery. They did not teach me that in culinary school. And that's what I learned on externship. So I think that is incredible advice that you need to know what you do and don't want to do.
Exactly.
When it comes to this industry. I love that. Okay, so I want to, because you are an educator, I want to kind of pull back the veil a little bit for people. So we're going to talk about education on a couple of levels. First, I want to talk to people who are thinking about going to culinary school, right? Like, we know you can be a chef without going to culinary school. And I use that loosely. Because I went to school, right? And so I use that loosely, but we understand that, TikTok, Instagram, all those things have really ushered in this new wave of foodpreneurs who do not have formal training. So if people are thinking about whether or not they should or shouldn't, what would you say to them about that?
I think the big question would be, and it's a really big question, is what do you want to do? What do you want to do with your education? You just explained it very well that you don't necessarily... Education is not for everyone. You don't have to go to formal culinary education to become a chef or a pastry chef or baker or whatever it is they want to do in the industry. There are plenty of people that have done amazing and had successful careers without going to culinary school. But for some people, going to culinary school is exactly the environment that they need. The nurture, the environment, the language, the terminology, the structure, the order, the persistence, the repetition, that's everything that a lot of people need to mold themselves in an environment to move on to the next step. Can they get that outside in the industry? Yes, but it's going to take a lot longer time to get to where they want to be. Now, is that okay? If they're okay with that, that's totally fine. But you can definitely tell in working in the industry, the people that have gone to culinary school and those who haven't. And it's not to say that one is better than the other, that just you can tell by the way they hold themselves, the terminology, the way they explain things, their understanding of how ingredients work and their ingredient functionality. Why this work? Why I'm going to use this? Why would I use a potato versus a sweet potato? What's the difference between a sweet potato and a regular, a chef potato? Their starch content. What is a starch? What is the starch molecule? Learning about all these things, you can tell they don't teach you that on the job. The job is, I need this done because service starts at 5 o'clock. I need you to do this as fast as you can. All right. At school, right, we learn exactly why we need this done. And then they also teach you how to have a sense of urgency. And then they combine everything together to make a symbiotic relationship there. So you can definitely tell the difference between the two. I am all for formal education because I believe it. I'm a very big person that thrives on structure and order, and that's how I run my kitchen. Very, very structured, very, very strategic and planned out. I know every single minute of that class, how it's going to run from the moment they walk in to the moment they leave. And that's how I run kitchens I was running when I was, an executive pastry chef. So transitioning to that from my standpoint of view, from that structured order into the shop in a culinary school was a very easy transition. I can run my class very similar with some deviation, like I was running my kitchens in the industry. So I am all for that, but you don't necessarily have to go to culinary school, but you need to have some sort of order, some structure. So I would recommend, if you're not going to go to culinary school, if you can't afford it, which it is very pricey, but is it worth it? I think so. But if it's not worth it for you or not able to afford it, I definitely find an environment that you can learn, you can nurture yourself. One of the things that happened to me when I graduated from CIA, so I graduated on a Friday, March 1st. I moved to Boston on Saturday. On Sunday, I took a day of rest and relaxation. And that Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, I had stages and interviews at 4 different establishments back to back to back. One of them was 13 hours. I was absolutely tired after that one. But that was like this. If the Michelin Guide is not in Boston, but if this was a Michelin star restaurant, it would have at least 2 Michelin stars. So that's the level of the cuisine that they were serving at this place. And I got all 4 job offers. I got offered all 4 jobs, and I had to choose which one I wanted to do. And sometimes that's very nerve-wracking compared to, I don't have a job, I don't know what to do, compared to, I have 4 job offers, I don't know which one to pick. So what I chose the one that would give me the best experience, not the best money, not the shortest commute from where I was living, none of that. I was there to get the best experience, and I chose that one, which was actually a little bit less pay. I took a little bit less pay than a couple of the others, but I chose that one because I knew this was going to help me get me to my next step, and I was going to get a good experience from working here. So I always explain that to everyone, is try and understand where it is that you would like to go, and don't deviate from that path that you set for yourself. Everyone already has a path already destined for them. It's up to you whether you're going to follow that path or make deviations or take detours on that path. But the objective there is to choose strategic jobs or positions that were going to set you up for your next position. Always thinking about the next step. So that way you're always going to be going up. And even if in any job I've ever taken has always been either a step above or a lateral move, never downwards. So I knew that whatever job that I ever took was always going to put me into the next step. Sometimes, if this job work environment is not working well for me, I need to transition. I'm not ready for the next step, but I still have things to learn. I'm going to then make a lateral move to another place, better environment, perhaps better pay, better nurturing environment. So that when I move on to my next step, when I move on to my sous chef or head pastry chef role, I'm going to be ready for that, and not only take the next step, and so on and so forth.
I love that. And I fully get it. I understand. Even I never went the route of working for someone else. I just literally went into entrepreneurship and working for myself. But I think that's almost harder, because who is enforcing the structure? And I had to enforce the structure on myself in building out my business. And I think that really helps me stand apart from the other people that I graduated with, because my business was really, really successful for 10 years. And a lot of them closed their businesses or were working other places or moved into a different industry within like 5 years. And I'm like, that was a lot of money for culinary school. We gonna do this until the wheels fall off. And that's exactly what I did. So I think that is excellent. The thing I do want to say, so for people who are listening to this and they maybe are in culinary school currently, we have lots of students in the RBA. If they're currently in culinary school, what advice would you give them from the view of the chef instructor? What will help them be successful?
My biggest advice would be take advantage of the opportunities that are in front of you, but also take advantage of the opportunities that are not directly in front of you. You have to seek them out. Culinary school, at the collegiate level, right? It's a college, right? You're supposed to enjoy, right, your college year, because after this 4 years, right, you become an adult, a full-on adult, or taxes and utilities and mortgages and all these hopefully these things happen to you later on in life, right? But your objective is to enjoy college, right? So there are a lot of students here that want the full college experience, which there's nothing wrong with that. However, right? These 4 years, these pivotal years here are in college, right, are going to set you up for the rest of your life, the rest of your career, essentially. So why not take advantage of opportunities that are presented? We are here at TIA, we are 90-minute train ride from New York City. New York City, the biggest city, the greatest city in the world, right? Especially for food, right? The greatest bakeries in the world, the greatest, restaurants, three Michelin-star restaurants. Why not take a train ride on the weekend? Offer to work in a restaurant, a stage at a restaurant on the weekend, to say you stage there, to get that experience. So, right? I'm not wasting any time. I staged at a 3 Michelin-star restaurant. Now I realize that's not what I want to do. I want to do something else. But at least you got that experience. It only took 1 weekend away from your time, from your personal time, to experience this. But also, I'm a chef instructor here. I teach, a certain amount of classes here as well too. But my scope of knowledge, my scope of expertise is not just what I teach in that class. I have a vast array of knowledge on many different other things, baking and pastry related, and some non-baking and pastry related. I love barbecue. My favorite thing to do outside of baking and pastry, barbecue and pizza. I am very, very proficient in both of those things, but if no one ever asks me about those things, they're not going to get that information.
Sure.
So my biggest advice is, talk to your chefs on a professional level, and perhaps maybe you could become on a more personal level, and you get to understand them, who they are, how they got to where they are, and what journeys that they took, and where to go, where not to go, and things, how to connect with certain people, and building those relationships can definitely benefit you in the long run. There are some chefs that I had in culinary school that some of them I work with now, but and I also went to Johnson Wales too, that I'm very friendly with, and I reach out to them, they reach out to me, job opportunities, scholarship opportunities for other students. Hey, do you know anyone that works in Utah? Oh, I have a friend that works in Utah. Let me give him a call. You know what I mean? It's just treating that community, right? But if I didn't build a relationship with that person or that particular team of individuals, right, that would have never happened. So take advantage of the opportunities that are in front of you, they're being provided to you, because there is gold sitting right in front of you. You just have to pick it up and take it.
Agreed. And when I think about that, I'm like, man, I'm still friends with like the chefs who were instructing me 12 years ago on Facebook. Like, and if I ever have a question, or if I can't find something, or even like right now, right, with the price of things going up, I'm like, everybody's freaking out. This isn't the first time eggs have skyrocketed. This isn't the first time butter has skyrocketed, right? And so what you can ask these people, so what do we do? How do we, I know we didn't talk about this in school, but can you give me some business advice on how we do these things? All of those sorts of things come up even for me a decade later, when I'm thinking about, okay, well, what's the next move, or what's the state of the industry right now? I think students should absolutely be networking fully with other students and with the faculty at the schools, because they know a whole lot more than you do. Okay, so we're gonna shift our education conversation, because there may be people who currently have bakeries that have been in the industry for a while, and they're transitioning, and they are thinking about, I know a whole lot of stuff. Like I'm good. I've run my bakery for 10 years, 12 years, 20 years. I would love to give forward to the next generation. What advice would you give people who want to move into teaching on the collegiate level?
Great question. Really great question. I'm going to say, from my experience, I also have, so I'm an instructor here, but I also happen to be, all of the instructors are on some sort of committee, right? So we all have committee meetings periodically, once or twice a month throughout each semester. And I happen to be on the Baking and Pastry Search Committee. So any person that applies to CIA for baking pastry position, right, they get screened through HR and they get sent to the Baking Pastry Search Committee. We conduct the interviews, right? They have a practical exam that they come in through that is formulated by the committee. So I could get to see it from both. I got to see it from both sides as an interviewee, but now as an interviewer. So now, from my experience on the Baking Pastry Search Committee, it takes a special kind of someone to pull a chef out of a restaurant and put them in a classroom, so to speak. In our case, from a bakery or a restaurant into a bake shop here at CIA. So just because you have a great amount of experience, just because you have a great personality, doesn't necessarily mean you're qualified to work here. It has to have a great fit. My biggest advice for a baking chef position or chef instructor position is the knowledge. you have to understand the knowledge of why we do certain things a certain way. Because the students will definitely ask you, Chef, why does this happen? Chef, why does sugar caramelize? Chef, why do when we add flour to something, if I add too much flour, does it get too dry? What in flour dries things out? So understanding the functionality of your ingredients, so that you, from a professional standpoint of view, can explain the whys to the students. I've worked in so many places, I'm sure you have as well, that when you ask the question of why is this way, the answer you get is, oh, well, this is the way I was taught. Oh, this is the way Chef Johnny showed me, so I'm going to show you this way too. But they couldn't fundamentally explain to you why we do this a specific way. And certain things I understand that's the way, right? I like this to be organized this way because this is the way I would like it to be organized. I have a specific system, right? But if for some reason I want you to, mix the bread dough for 5 minutes instead of 4 minutes, why the extra minute of time? Why not 30 seconds? Why not 15? Why not 2 minutes? Why one extra minute? I want to understand why, right? So having understanding of ingredient functionality and functionality of tools and equipment, and it's going to come down to personality as well too, right? I can't be that rigid, those scary French chefs that we all grew up learning about, from all the movies and we watch and see that everyone's just so scared of that. You can't do that, not anymore at least. So the personality does have a play into that, but it's about your knowledge as well too. For the search committee, there's 2 parts of the practical that you have to take. There is a baking practical that you produce a certain amount of criteria for the baking and pastry faculty, croissant, entremet, and petit gâteau, baguettes, right? There's a certain amount of things that you are required to produce for the faculty to showcase your baking skills. And then also you're on the second day of the practical exam, you have to teach a class to a group of students. So it assesses your baking skills, your practicality skills, but also your teaching skills as well too, right? The students will be prompted to ask the candidate questions based off of what the criteria is, and the instructor or whoever the candidate is had better be able to answer the student's question. Now, the faculty members in the back, while they're watching this as well too, they may ask them questions as well, right? We know the answer, right? But we're looking to see if they know the answer as well too, to explain to the students, because sometimes the students just stand there and look at them, right, without saying anything. So we kind of have to prompt the questions to come out. So it's more so about that practical will really assess your teaching skills and your practicality skills, your hand skills. From my standpoint of view, we can teach you how to teach, and that's something that you gain as you become more experienced as an instructor. But I can't teach you how to bake. That's something you have to be proficient in as soon as you walk in the door. So that's been a common misunderstanding, that people come in without the proper skill set. Oh, I've got a great personality. I've taught classes before, right? Yes, but you have to be able to do the job, right? You have to be able to produce the product from a master or a very highly proficient standpoint of view from there. So definitely, if you're looking to become an instructor, really, really hammer down your skills. Make sure you're repetition. You're master and proficient in all aspects of baking and pastry, chocolate, sugar, laminated doughs, eclairs, pâte à choux, cake decorating, entremets, glazing, all those different things, multifaceted in all those areas. And then the teaching, right? Not everyone can teach, right? But understanding the fundamental knowledge of each and every aspect of those to be able to teach it to someone that has no idea what chocolate is. What is chocolate? Who is Santa Claus, right? How do you explain it without using the word in the sentence, right? What is chocolate? Well, chocolate is chocolate. How do you explain how chocolate is how do you explain what flour is without using the word flour in the description to someone that has no idea? So being able to do that really set you apart, get you the opportunity.
I love that. And so for those of you who are listening and you want to be an instructor at CIA, you just got the cheat codes on what to do. And at this point, I'm sitting here like, let me go pull out my books. Culinary Institute, they're right behind me on the bookshelf. They're at the bottom. I'm like, I remember all of those things. And even in the chocolate conversation, my chef did not describe chocolate as chocolate. Like, we had to learn the percentages. We had to learn where it came from. We needed to know how much cocoa powder was in, or, like all these different things. And I'm like, it wasn't just chocolate. Like, the temperature of the room makes a difference. If it was raining, it made a difference in what the recipe was doing. And my chefs could fully explain to us why more moisture in the air was going to
Right.
affect what you were making, right?
Right.
And so all of those things that like are not necessary. I don't even remember that being in the book. I just remember that being like, no, we were in class one night and it was raining. Everybody's stuff was messing up. And he was like, it's moisture in the air.
Right.
Here's how you fix it. Or maybe you don't make this right now and you wait until the temperature like levels out or there's not so much moisture in the air. Like all of those things, I remember that. And it used to drive me nuts in school, even in chocolate, when he was like, you have hot hands, go stand in the cooler. Like everything melts, like those types of things. How do you walk people through understanding that you're nervous and your body temperature raised and that's why your buttercream is melting? That's why it's separated. Like, how do you fix those things? So I think that's super important for people to understand. You need to be able to explain that, not just say, oh yeah, that happens sometimes, but why? Like, but why? So I think that is super, super cool. I love this conversation. Let's see. Which way do you want to go? Okay, so let's talk about creativity. Let's
Yes.
talk about creativity in more than one way. So first we'll start with like creativity in the industry. Like, where do you think it's going? The trends that your students are showing you, the things that you're seeing. How do you feel about the level of creativity? And then we'll talk about how does creativity play a part as an instructor.
I am actually fascinated with creativity, and there are so many different things. Young people, I have two young sons, one is 10, one is 4, and then I know people that are in their 90s, 80s and 90s, and how you talk and converse with them, and however old they are and however much years of experience they have in life and their career or whatever, there's always a level of creativity. And I'm just fascinated with that. How someone that, right, that we don't share the same language. This person is a master artist. This person is a master race car driver, and just talking about that creativity or just innovative ways on a doctor or medical procedures that creativity is such a fascinating thing to me. And it really blows my mind, especially in my industry where sometimes the students will teach me things that I've never seen before or have yet to see. And, I'm on Facebook, Instagram, all these, social media websites that I get to see a lot of things that are going on around the world, which, like, as you said, 12 years ago, we didn't have that. You had to look at the magazines, the textbooks, right? You had to buy them, right? So Good magazine, all these Pastry Art and Design magazine. Right now, I can see exactly what's happening in Japan, China, France, Italy, Germany, right now from my phone or from my computer and see exactly what's happening over there and what they're doing, specifically over there in terms of creativity. And, dealing with students that come from all different facets of the world. I have students come from all over the world. And I love asking, where's home for you? Where do you come from? Where's your heritage? Where do you come from? Where do you come to CIA from? And there's always a story behind it. And I love talking to our, especially international students that always have great stories, great recipes. I had a student from Saudi Arabia that she loves me, right? She loved taking my class. And she phoned home and she had shipped in some Saudi Arabian dates, especially for me, that they use in Saudi Arabia that I'd never seen before. I worked with dates before, but she gave me like 3 different kinds of dates that I didn't know there's more than one kind, right? But they are able to teach me so many different things. And, especially international students, they have so many different heritages and all these different fantastic fine dining desserts and snacks and candies that we don't have here. Here we have, Cheez-Its and Snickers bars. Right over there, they have actual candy. They have actual desserts that they make or their grandmother makes, or they go to a shop and this dessert is only served on this specific day or this time of the year, right? These are all things that I love learning about, and that helps me become a better educator as well too. But just because you're a student doesn't necessarily mean that you have nothing to teach at all either. And I learn, my 4-year-old son, he's really bossy, but he teaches me things as well too. Patience, right? I have to be very patient with him, but he teaches me to be aware of my surroundings as well too. Because he's so short, I can trip over him in 2 seconds. So be aware of my surroundings. Use your polite voice when you're talking. Be mindful of what movies you're watching, because he will repeat words from certain movies that you don't want him to.
Yes.
But, creativity all ties into that, and I enjoy being in that aspect and learning about new ways of being creative. And, part of the thing when I was a culinary student is yes, creativity, but also understanding the basics and foundations and why they are the way that they are. And then finding a way that I can use what I know to figure out what I don't know. Is there a way I can break this thing, this fundamental technique that I know, or this fundamental product that I know works fine? Can I break it down to a scientific or molecular level and build it back up into a new, different way, shape, or form that will be essentially better? Maybe, maybe not, right? Have the user creativity. When I was a pastry chef in Boston, I really wanted to do this deconstructed banana split dessert. I've always loved banana splits. Everyone's seen, the two bananas with the chocolate vanilla strawberry ice cream with the whipped cream and the cherry on top. Everyone loves that, right? And I did it 2 different times at 2 different restaurants. And both times I had to take the dessert off the menu because people were actually expecting a banana split. So they didn't understand the aspect of deconstructed. And I put so much thought into all these different components and textures and hydrocolloids and doing all these fancy and amazing things, but nobody wanted to eat it, or they sent it back because they didn't understand it. So one day I will get to do that dessert the way I wanted to, and evolve it to the way I want to. But utilizing creativity really, really is fundamental there, and understanding that there's foundations, but there's also ways you can push the button a little bit and go color outside the lines a little bit and see what happens.
Mm-hmm. Fully agree. And that made me think about understanding color theory, right?
Absolutely.
Like, if you don't understand the primary colors, you're going to have a hard time matching whatever a bride brings you for her wedding cake. And it's like, you can't, one of these people, when I was teaching classes, people were always like, well, I'm just going to add this red to this white. No, you're not. It's going to be pink. Like, the same things still apply. You cannot put red food coloring into white frosting and think it's going to be red. That's not how this works. Like, we need to do 2 steps. Make it pink first, dye it pink, and then add the red, right? But if you don't understand the fundamentals of the things, then you can't figure out, well, what do I need to add to this to make it this color? Black is another one. You cannot add black to white. It's going to be gray. I don't care what you do. I don't care how much you add to it. It's going to be gray. It just is. But are there ways you can make frosting black? Yes. It's just not adding black dye to it, right? But if people don't understand that, then you are wasting product. And you are wasting time. And I think one of the biggest lessons that people can take away from this podcast particularly is, we encourage creativity, but if you don't have the foundational aspects of things, then the creativity won't work. The other thing I would say is you should just shoot a TikTok video for your deconstructed split. And then it doesn't matter. Then people will get it.
That's a fantastic idea, actually.
I'm just saying, turn it into content creation. It's that's what I'm transitioned into.
I will say that there's a concept. There's a nerve in your brain called the trigeminal nerve, and the trigeminal nerve creates a trigeminal response called the trigeminal response. That, when it comes to food, to basically break it down in simple layman terms, is are certain foods will give you a perception of a temperature based off of what it is that you're eating. Mm-hmm. So, like mint. Mint is not cold at all, right? But it gives you the cooling effect. That's the trigeminal response. Cinnamon or clove, right? Mm-hmm. They're not hot at all in terms of temperature, right? But when I put those on my tongue, it's hot. So there are ways that you can utilize the trigeminal response that can affect the way the flavor compounds of a dish to work. Now, due to the trigeminal response, there are ways to affect people's emotions based off of the trigeminal response. So if I have a mint mojito by the beach, that's going to relax me a little bit too. Where if I have a hot cinnamon drink or hot cinnamon tea during the wintertime, that's going to warm me up, but also keep me warm and cozy, put me in a better mood rather than being shivering cold. So there is ways you can affect people's emotions by the food that they eat. And that is exactly what they do in Michelin-starred restaurants. Mm-hmm. Which people don't understand. It's all about the experience, but that's what they do. And that's why people keep coming back. And that's why it has such a notoriety. I want to go spend $600 to $1,000 on this meal because of the way that the environment, the way it made me feel. Yes, I have 20 different courses, but each course is only a bite or a bite and a half. Mm-hmm. But the way it made me feel, it set me up for the next course and the course after that and the course after that. And I didn't feel full at the end of them. I felt perfectly full. I didn't feel bloated or overly full. I felt exactly where I wanted to be, and I felt good because my emotions were tickled and played with a little bit, specifically and intrinsically in that specific way, strategically in that specific way, for a reason for you to enjoy it at that specific level. But I enjoy that. That has to, it has to do with creativity, right? Playing with the trigeminal response on each person's nerve endings will alter how they perceive the meal to be eaten.
Love that. And my brain literally just saw Ratatouille. At the
Exactly.
very end,
Yes.
when he
Yes.
takes that bite, I was like, literally, like that entire experience. I'm like, that's what I want people to think about whenever they eat my food. But same thing. I love that you explained that. That's a freebie for y'all. It wasn't even a part of our question, but that was so good. I love it so much. Okay, so as we bring this to a close, I want you to give some parting words, one to students, because from the educator perspective, like I remember culinary school, like I do, and it was probably one of the toughest seasons of my life. Like it was hard. It wasn't, no, it was hard. And it was definitely one of those, like, I was a really good baker. Like, what do you mean? Like, I was a straight A student. Like, and then I get in culinary school. I remember getting a B on my cookie practical, and I cried. My feelings were so hurt because what do you mean I got a B on cookies? Like, I do cookies. And
Exactly.
I had to figure out why I got a B. Or like, I went to the library, I met with my instructor, like, I don't understand. Like, I got an A on other stuff I could care less about. Why did I get a B on this? And it was because I knew so much about it. I was in my head when I made it. And so I had to like take a step back. And she was like, she was like, I looked at your face while you were doing it. And I saw when you messed up. And she was like, but you weren't paying attention. You were like, yeah, this is going to be great. And then I got a B. And so I was like, this is not wonderful. It broke my heart. It hurt my feelings. So ended up on bed rest for 6 weeks during culinary school because I could not stand up straight. And I remember taking a test. I did get an A on that one though. I took my final and my chef looked at me and said, go directly to the emergency room. And I was on bed rest for 6 weeks with an inflamed sciatic nerve. And so culinary school was a tough period, right? However, I'd do it again. I would totally do it again because I learned so much about myself. I learned a lot about chemistry. I learned a lot about science. I didn't think I was good at math until I went to culinary school and had to do ratios and percentages.
Exactly.
I was like, man, I'm going to
Yes.
flunk out for the math part. But I didn't. Like, I became a tutor for other people. And it really changed my opinion of what chef life looks like compared to what you think is happening inside of a bakery. So if you could give advice to students or people who are just starting out, I would love for you to do that.
Absolutely. I think you said it really best, and I can, picture back to my days in culinary school about going through similar situations, pulling my hair out, nerve-wracking about this test I have in chocolates that I know is going to be really, really difficult, or this practical I have in my waiting cakes class that I know is, I only have a certain amount of time, but I want to do so much, but I have to fit all this in. My hands can only go so fast. I'm making these gum pastry roses. Advice would be, especially in culinary school, take the time. Yes, I want you to have a great sense of urgency, but take the time to learn these things now because school is where you're supposed to make mistakes. And I tell my students on day one, I want you to make mistakes. I want you to burn the pastry cream. I want you to overbake your muffins so you'll understand, number one, how to use a timer, but also understand what happens when these things occur. How is there a way I can prevent this from happening? Right? But a lot of the times when these things happen, students are moving way too fast. Slow down, take the time to learn the fundamentals now, and then gradually speed up and go on from there. And it's really easy to see that when they perform that in class too, the first time they make something, and then the second time, and then the third time, they get faster each and every time. The first time, they're unfamiliar with it. They're unfamiliar with the directions on the formula, right? The second time, okay, I'm a little bit more comfortable now. And then the third time, they're proficient. Third time, you see the shoulders relax a little bit. Right? When they're making that pastry cake, the shoulders relax. But the first time, I have no idea what I'm doing. I have no idea am I whisking this properly? Is my heat the right temperature? But as you become more confident, you become better at it. And I say this concept in my class a lot, is quantity over quality. The more times you do something, the better you become at it naturally. You don't have to rush. Just do things more, try and fit in more times. Spend your extra time on the weekends. Instead of laying down, playing Mario Kart, maybe bake a batch of pastry cream, maybe pipe some eclairs. And I have students that come in on a free day that will just pipe eclairs for 3 hours long. Don't bake, not bake. They'll just scrape them up, put them back in the bag, and pipe, full sheet tray over and over again to become proficient and squeezing and the hand pressure and the motion and how to cut it off properly and twist it, just to become proficient at that. And those students will always statistically do better than the ones that don't. So quantity over quality, slow down, and as you described there, listen to your body. You want to push yourself, right? My job, I always push my students a lot. I push them a lot beyond their boundaries, and I know when to push and pull a little bit. I know the limits where I can go to, but it's a two-way street. I need them to be able to push themselves as well too. And you have to push yourself a little bit beyond your comfort level. And that's how anything grows, right? That's how a muscle grows. When you're working out, right, the muscle will either grow or will die, right? Now, hopefully this doesn't happen in baking pastry, but it works similarly in that concept where you have to push yourself beyond what you think is probable, just a little bit, to make yourself a little uncomfortable, to make yourself better, to make yourself grow. But when your body needs rest, you need to give your body rest, right? And a lot of time, and I am a very big victim of this, I did not listen to my body, and my body shut down whenever it wanted to at the least opportune time, So you don't want that to happen at all, because that's a very big inconvenience. And now you're even worse than you were before. So listen to your body, and yeah.
That's so good. My other question was going to be parting words, was going to be for people who want to be chef instructors, but I feel like this rolls over into that too. Like, this will take you out of your comfort zone. And if during the part where we were discussing what the CIA is looking for in their chef instructors, being a member of the RBA, we have study hall, like we have videos that help you to prepare for things like that. So if that's a thought process for you, then you might need to go outside of your comfort zone and kind of tap into those resources that you can have. And, luckily for us, the RBA provides some of those resources.
Absolutely.
So I think that is so incredible. This has been so fun.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for joining us on The Perfect Rise.
My pleasure.
I love this so much. We might have to come back and do another one.
Round 2. Okay. Let's
do it. I feel like we could go so deep into.
Yeah, I got plenty more.
Yeah, all the things baking and pastry. So if you guys listening have any questions, you can definitely shoot them to us. You can send them to Kimberly at retailbakersofamerica.org, or just hit reply wherever you are seeing this. I'll be watching for comments on all of our social platforms, and we will definitely get those answered for you. Jesse, thank you so much for joining me on today's podcast. Until next time, stay sweet, friends.